You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma podcast. Mike Hearn here, your host, back with another episode. Excited to share this episode with you today, but before we do, I've got to thank our sponsors. First of all, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame. They've been a huge part of this podcast for the last few years. So the Oklahoma Hall of Fame have been sharing Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com. And for daily updates, go to oklahomahof on Instagram and give them a follow. Our other sponsor today is Chickasaw Nation. Now, the Chickasaw Nation have sponsored pretty much everything in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma. And it's an honor to have their name and their brand supporting this podcast. A huge shout out to Governor Anatobi for supporting this podcast. It really means a lot. Our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them, do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln. This episode is presented by Citizens Bank of Edmond. Citizens Bank of Edmond has been serving Edmond since 1901. They pride themselves on investing in the community and are here for all your personal and business banking needs. For more information, go to mycitizens.bank and follow them on Instagram at citizensedmond, as well as go bank there because I bank there too. It's been a fantastic personal experience for me. I've had my podcast account there now, my podcast business account there now for 4 years now, I think, and it's been fantastic. So definitely worth your time. They're a great group of people, and they're always there to answer the phone when I forget my password because I seem to forget it daily. So yeah, go to Citizens Edmond and check them out. It's been awesome. This episode is brought to you by the Dog House OKC. Recently, I have been in need of some doggy daycare for my 2 pups, and the Dog House have come in clutch. The team over there are incredible. They've taken care of my 2 golden doodles, and so it's been an honor to partner with them on the podcast and share the love. And the one thing that I do with the sponsors that I have is stuff that I use and recommend, like the Diffies with my car, Hall of Fame. They're awesome. Citizens Banks, where I bank. Chickasaw Nation, huge supporter of Oklahoma. And adding to that is the Dog House. And so if you're in need of doggy daycare in the day or boarding overnight, they do grooming and other cool things too. But I've had a fantastic experience, and it's an honor and a privilege to share this with you too. So go to thedogHouseOKC.com and follow them on Instagram at thedogHouseOKC. And hopefully our pups will run into each other. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, host, back with another episode up in Edmond today. We are sat at the Lark in our model home. It's beautiful. If you're watching the video, you'll see a beautiful setting behind us, designed by Brett from Designers Brew. If you should probably follow her on Instagram too if you don't already, and she's been on the podcast. But if you're interested in living in the Lark in this beautiful, small, little homes, close to downtown Edmond, reach out. I'll put a link down in the description to our salesperson, I would get. I mean, Tess is part of the team. She's awesome, but I don't know what her actual title is. But sales director, there we go. Let's just call it that. Tess Myers, our sales director. You should reach out to her. But thank you, Tess, for letting us take care. So yes, we are at the model home. It's beautiful. You should come check it out. Put the link in the description for that. But it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you today my guest, who is New York Times bestseller at least one time. We'll find out more now. But Jamie McGuire is on the podcast. Jamie, thank you so much for coming down.
Hi.
Thank you. I mean, you've been busy. I saw you recently. Was it recently you hit 100K on Instagram?
Yeah.
Pretty recently?
I think I lost 1,000.
Yeah, we'll get into that too. I know how that feels. It's a pain. But yeah, you have a series called The Beautiful Disaster, which we'll dive into, which has been made into a movie. There's a TV series coming. I'm fascinated by the writing world because it's something that I enjoy doing, but I have no idea how to publish. And everyone's like, "Oh, I should write a book one day," and they never do. But have friends similar to yourself who've published books, and not to the level that you have, but people who've published books.
I can help you with that.
Yeah, I need to learn more about that. Everyone has a story. It's why I started a podcast. But today is about you. It's not about me or everyone else. So let's start off with, I guess, your Oklahoma story. Where were you born and raised?
I was born in Tulsa.
Okay.
And St. Francis Hospital is a big pink hospital. When I was little, I used to think only girls were born there. It's not the case. Then my parents lived in Kellyville. And when I was 4, my mom moved us up to Blackwell because that's where her parents lived. And so I grew up in Blackwell, Oklahoma. It's up by the Kansas border.
Blackwell, a long way away. Mm-hmm. A lot different to Tulsa.
It's a lot different now than it used to be when I was growing up because Conoco was in Ponca City, and a lot of people lived in Blackwell, and they were what I thought was all the rich folk in town, and they worked at Conoco, and then when Conoco moved out, Blackwell just decimated Blackwell. So there's not really much there except for maybe my mom and meth.
Not together, separately.
No. Mama doesn't partake.
Yeah. How old are you when you're in Blackwell?
So from the time I was 4 until I graduated high school. And
wow. So it's a significant time then.
Yeah, I went to UCO, which is probably why I move around a lot now because I was just stationary until I was 18. Yeah. And then ever since I graduated high school, I've moved every 2-3 years.
Yeah.
So I went to UCO and then got pregnant with my first daughter, so I dropped out, and then got married, and then had my second daughter, and then decided to go back to college. Went to NOC, pre-med, and I went to Autry Tech in Enid, drove back and forth, hour and 15 minutes one way. Did that for 2 years, graduated, but while I was in x-ray school, I wrote my first book, Providence.
Okay.
Got in a lot of trouble for it.
I'm dive into that too. What did you want to be when you grew up? When you're in Blackwell, as you're growing up, or you're in sort of small town Oklahoma, are you thinking I got to get out of here and go to a big city and be myself? And did you ever think you'd write? What was the dream of Jamie back when you're 13, 14, 15, 16?
Well, when I was little, I thought I was going to be a dog catcher veterinarian adoption clinic.
Okay. And
then as I got older, I thought it'd be really cool to be like a famous singer, but alas.
Only sing in the shower, not great on stage in front of a crowd?
No, I'm actually a karaoke queen. I sang karaoke Wednesday night. I nailed it.
Still
if I
going?
Say so myself.
What's your karaoke jam?
My go-to is If I Ain't Got You by Alicia Keys.
Okay. Yeah. You can sing if you're trying to do an Alicia Keys song.
Yeah, well, my family's very musical. Both my grandpas were Free Will Baptist preachers. Mm-hmm. And my dad's side of the family, everyone plays an instrument. If you don't, you better be able to sing. Mm-hmm. I don't play anything. Yeah, so had to sing. And my papa would always, every time I visited his church, he'd call me up to sing a special. That's what he called. Jamie, you want to sing a special?
Yeah.
But I was also the grandpa that ran me over when I was 2.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I love that man. He passed away several years ago, but he was my favorite grandparent. And but when I was 2, he was leaving for a revival, and I wanted to go with him. And he told me no, but of course I don't listen. So I walked out, and he didn't know I walked out, and he backed up the car and sucked me underneath the car and ran over my waist. And the only thing that was wrong with me, well, actually, let me back up. So they pulled me out from underneath the car because he was with his preacher friend. I guess they run in packs. But his name is Gene Jackson, I believe. And Gene pulled me out, handed me to my pawpaw. My pawpaw carries me in, and he says, "Daryl," that's my dad's name, "I've runned over the baby." So Dad says, "Well, let's get in the car." So they took me to the hospital and did all the tests, and there was absolutely nothing wrong with me. I had tire marks across my waist, and I had a cut in the back of my head from the gravel driveway when I fell. That was it. I went home.
Wow.
Pretty crazy, huh? I also had a neck brace when I was little. I was a wild kid.
I guess you're just made of whatever you're made of at 2, everything's still developing, so everything's still like supple, I guess, right? You just like rubber and they just run you over and you're okay, dust you off, you're good.
I think it was all God, because Papa said it felt like they went over a huge speed bump, so maybe it had some angels like lifting the car up, I don't know, but
wow. What a story to have as a kid.
Yeah, I survived.
Hi, my name's Jamie. I got run over by my granddad.
It was his favorite story to tell when I came to church too. Jamie, stand up. Let me tell a story about the time I ran you over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Constant reminder of, like said, the faith, the Lord, whatever you want to call it, being there right in front of you and in front of Him for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So singing was on the brain at a young age.
Yes.
Did you go to UCO for performance? Like, why did you choose UCO?
I don't know why I chose UCO. My ACT scores, I could get in there. I didn't want to go to NOC; it was too close. I wanted to leave. I wanted to take off. So I wanted to go out of town, but not out of state. So one of my friends in high school was going to UCO, so I looked into it and I really liked the campus, and that's where I went. I had a really good time there, but I was a little wild, so I didn't go to class.
Really enjoyed getting out of the I guess, what do you call it, the watchful eye of family in a smaller town, and enjoying freedom and being in college and
the preacher's granddaughter.
Yeah.
So I was pretty wild in high school, but that carried through college. Yeah.
So what did you choose when you got to UCO then?
I was just doing general ed, and by the time I even thought about what I might want to do, I was going to be a mother.
Okay.
So I was a mom before I was 21.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How was that experience?
I was so naive. It didn't even occur to me that I couldn't do it. So it was just, okay, we're having a baby. So I did it.
Was that not normal, but had you grown up around sort of in a small town, younger, girls of your age or whatever it was, young? Yeah.
It was frowned upon. Sure. It wasn't uncommon.
Right. Yeah. Shotgun wedding, the whole thing?
What's that?
Shotgun wedding, the whole 9 yards?
No, that didn't come till later.
Okay.
So she was 4.
Okay.
When I got married, and then she's 7.5 years older than her sister.
Gotcha. Yeah. So you have your daughter. Life. Obviously, you think you're in college. You're young. You get pregnant. You have your daughter. Life sort of flipped upside down. You now are like, hey, I'm going to be a mum. This is my full-time job now. And then, like you said, you decide to go back to school.
Right.
Pre-med.
Right.
Where does that decision come in to think like, hey, I'm going to go? Because you end up going to radiology, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, radiography.
Radiography. Sorry.
So yeah, but to be honest with you, I knew I was going to leave my husband.
Okay.
So we already kind of talked and knew that we just got married really young and for the wrong reasons. And so I knew that I was going to need to be able to support my children.
Okay.
So that's why.
Yeah. And you said earlier you started writing obviously a lot before that and got in trouble for writing the book. So talking about the writing, were you always sort of creative writing growing up and that's what led to it?
Well, I've always written in some capacity. When I was in grade school, I used to make comic book strips. And then in high school, I wrote plays. And then I blogged as a young adult. I was one of the top blogs on MySpace. And so, but it wasn't until I watched Twilight and then I read it, because I'm not a big reader. So I watched Twilight, read it, and thought, oh, this is not, Nietzsche. I can do this. So I wrote Providence, and I soared through it. It was in its original form. It was the size of 2 full-length novels, and I wrote it in 11 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, because I didn't know anything about writing.
Sure.
So I didn't know how long it was supposed to be. So I had to that was back, when self-publishing was still a dirty word. So I had to learn everything, research it online. I didn't have other self-published authors I could go to. We didn't have freelance cover designers and formatters and editors at our disposal. So
yeah,
lots of research.
Where does the storytelling creative side of you come from? Does it come from family? mean, I know you mentioned like they're very musically inclined on your dad's side, but the writing's a different sort of creative. To see and write something down and format it and have it like make sense on page.
Well, that came later.
Yeah.
I was being from a town where there was absolutely nothing to do. You had to get creative. I was a very imaginative child. My whole friend group, that's pretty much all we did when we were little. We'd go outside and pretend. And so that's where the imagination stemmed from. And then as I got older, I just had to learn. I mean, I look at my latest release, The Art of Dying, versus Providence, or even some of my earlier works like Happenstance, and it's night and day. It just takes practice.
Yeah.
But I remember when I first wrote Providence, I was opening Twilight and looking at it to see how she formatted it, to see how if she'd start, at what point in time you start a different paragraph, when you start the line of dialogue. So I had to figure all that out.
Yeah. What was Providence about?
It is a YA paranormal.
Okay.
It was heavily influenced by Twilight, but it's not vampires. It's angels and demons. It has a lot of theology in it. It's very intricate plot, which Beautiful Disaster was my second novel, and it's my best-selling novel. But I didn't publish it. It sat on my computer for a year because in comparison with Providence, Beautiful Disaster was fluff.
Okay.
It was just about a dysfunctional young relationship.
Yeah.
And Providence has a very intricate plot. It's just a lot of weaving in and out and a lot of backstory and a lot of theology. Okay. So.
Yeah. Because Beautiful Disaster is from a personal experience of yours, right?
It has a lot
Ties
of.
to it.
Yeah. It has a lot of my college experiences in it. The lead male is based off a guy I had a crush on at UCO. And but it's a lot of fiction. That guy wasn't covered in tattoos. He didn't drive a motorcycle. He didn't fight in an underground fight ring. I was not a poker phenom, and my dad wasn't in trouble with the mafia. So it has a lot of fiction. But if you tear it down to the basics, the foundation of it, it's all my personal experiences.
So being totally opposite to, not totally, but obviously pretty different to the first one, Providence, with angels and demons and sort of the Twilight realm stuff. Is that just stuff you've grown up reading? Like,
no,
not at all.
I've never been a big reader.
Yeah. So you just watched Twilight, then read it, and thought, I can do this.
Yeah, Twilight was the first series I'd read in my adult life, and even when I was in school, I didn't read a lot. I didn't even really read what I was supposed to read. I just cliff notes and winged the book reports. I read a few books in high school, but Twilight was the first series that I had read cover to cover. And so, sorry, I have ADD. What was the question?
Just how different they are. Like, and where does that come from? Like, how do you start, with Beautiful Disaster, and it comes from a personal experience, and then you add fluff to it to make it more, sellable, enticing, whatever you want to call it. With the Providence side of things, it's a lot of angels and demons and far more creatively different, I would say. Fantasy rather than just like two human beings, like you're talking angels and demons, right? So what side of the brain and where does that come from early on, especially when you write it in 11 weeks? Like, you must have had a lot kind of stacked up in the brain to just think, I'm going to write 2 full-size novels.
Well, a symptom of ADHD or ADD is hyper-focusing.
Okay.
So once I get onto something, I just am obsessed with it until it's finished, especially if it's something I enjoy. So that's part of it. It's just the hyper-focusing. Yeah. But I don't know where... When I first got married, my husband at the time, he bought me the Sims game, and you can take still shots and write a little story underneath it and then submit it to like their website. And I did that. And so that was the foundation of Providence. It was my Sims characters, Jared and Nina Ryle, and that was their name in my Sims game. And I would take still shots. And I remember the very first still shot was of Nina sitting on a bench and Jared coming up and sitting with her. Well, back then it wasn't paranormal. But when I started writing it, I decided it needed more. And because it was heavily influenced by Twilight, I went the paranormal route.
Okay. Yeah. What are you obsessed with right now?
Obsessed with right now?
Yeah.
Apple TV.
Really?
Yeah, I should be obsessed with the current book I'm writing, but it's slow going. It's the same series I've been in and out of. It's the Beautiful Disaster series and the Maddox Brothers series and the Crash and Burn series. It's all, there's spin-offs of spin-offs. And it's kind of the same world, the same characters. And there are some books that I want to write that are completely different that I can't stop thinking about. But, when your readers make a request and it's been something they've been asking for years, you want to do that. But it's really hard for me because I want to write something fresh. Mm-hmm. And that's not saying that I don't love the story and I don't love the characters. Obviously I do. But it's just really hard to get back into that world and try to make it fresh. It's just easier to start with a new.
Yeah, and the creative side of you wants to keep creating new things and pushing the boundaries and seeing how far you can push yourself too, rather than just continuing the same. Like there's a lifetime for everything, mm-hmm. right? And well, for me, your fans might not think that sometimes. Right.
The excitement for me in writing a book is the initial meeting, the push and pull, the fight for control, the power struggle, the hurdles, and then the figuring it out. That's really what I like to write. So any kind of sequels or anything, then you're trying to come up with, because me personally, my mom watched soap operas the whole time I was growing up. So my mom was a big Days of Our Lives, Another World, Santa Barbara fan. My oldest daughter is actually named after a character on Santa Barbara named Eden. And back then, the couples would fight things together. Well, more modern soap operas, I haven't watched them since Haley was a baby, but it was a lot of cheating and, that was the struggles of the couples. So I don't like for my couples, once they're together, I don't like the whole cheating trope, or there might be triangles, but there's always a very obvious
fine line
couple that you're rooting for. And so it's more difficult, maybe not as fun, to write a book where the couple's together and they're facing a challenge together, because I don't really like the cheating trope or the misunderstanding trope. It's so annoying to me. If you just talk, you can figure it out.
Communication, right?
Yeah.
Everything comes back to communication.
Yeah, I think it's a little insulting to me as a consumer to sit there and watch couples. If they had a simple conversation, they could just figure it out. So those tropes are really annoying to me. So, yeah. But it makes my job a little more difficult.
That too. So Providence kicks off, gets successful. I mean, sounds like you just kind of write it for yourself at the time, and then you're like, hey, let's see what happens when I publish this, because that's what you do with the book. You figure it out, you research everything yourself. When's the moment where you're like, wow, like I can make money from this? This might be a career for me. Does that happen when Providence kind of blows up a little bit, or does that come later?
No, I was completely delusional. I thought for sure that Hollywood would be calling me within weeks of me publishing my book. And there's always some part of you that's like, this is going to go nowhere. Right. Only my friends and family are going to read it. And then there's the other part of you, at least for me, that's like, I'm going to be famous.
Yeah.
I'm going to be world renowned. I'm going to be a global sensation, and Hollywood's going to be calling. So I just have just enough healthy delusion to keep me going.
Yeah. Like I said, you got to keep that, because, you look at all the really successful people, there's an element of crazy in all of them, right? Everyone thinks
there has to be.
There has to be, because everyone's telling you no and keeping you in a box, and you're like, no, I'm going to do this.
Well, the entire time I wrote Providence, from my instructors to my husband to my friends, were all telling me. A couple of my girlfriends were pushing along, and one radiologist and one speech pathologist. They were the only people. Everyone else was telling me I was wasting my time, to quit, that it was absurd, ridiculous. But my personality is, hold my beer. Because that just makes me want to succeed even more.
Yeah. So tell me about when that book goes live then. It gets out there and snowball starts to roll, and you're really hustling to get it, going, because the book publishing world is a very competitive world. But looking back at your bio and some things, like you had some big firsts in there, right? And it
Right.
seems like you really
I
pushed
first
the
put
boundaries.
out Providence, and then I'd already written Beautiful Disaster, but I'd just written it for me.
Yeah.
And then I was writing Requiem, Providence, a sequel. And everyone was saying, when's it coming out? When's it coming out? And so I put out Beautiful Disaster. I just read over it once. I didn't even really edit it. I just, it wasn't my first rodeo publishing a book. So I just put it up give them something to read. And then it sold thousands and thousands, and then 10,000s, and then hundreds of thousands of copies, and then hit the New York Times. So Providence kind of took a back seat. But when I first started, that radiologist I was telling you about that supported me, he purchased 1,000 of my first print copies of Providence, and I would travel around to Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Texas and Missouri and put them in Hastings and put them on consignment. And then another author, I was like, hey, what advice would you have to say? And he said, well, if you don't have it, his name was J.R. Rain. I'll never forget him. He was kind of mean about it, but he said, if you don't have your books and ebooks, you're an idiot. I was like, oh, well, I guess I better do that. So that obviously broadened my audience. And that's the great thing about the internet and Amazon and iBooks and social media, is that as a self-published author, you have the exact same reach as anyone who's traditionally published.
Yeah.
And we could, back then especially, you had essentially no overhead because I was doing everything myself. So I could just put it at a really competitive price. And back then the ebooks were $7.99, $15.99. And I was pricing mine at $2 and $3.99. So people were buying them.
Yeah. I mean, it's like that cliche kind of feeling or moment where you've got your laptop set and you just ding, ding, ding every time a sale comes in. You just sat there is this real life right now?
Yeah, that's almost how it is. You kind of have to go in and check the Amazon reports, but
still, it's when you're getting that success and it's like that validation. You're like, okay, I can do this. I'm doing this. It's that, like you said, hold my beer. You just kind of turn around and in your own little ways saying, doubt me, right?
Yeah.
Bring it on.
It's almost surreal. It doesn't, it's like, is this really happening? And then the other side of you is like, yeah, I did it. Of course.
You have people reaching out to you from the publishing side of people that were like, hey, we want to give you an advance to write the next one?
Well, Beautiful Disaster had already been out for a year, and then the publisher started calling because they were really starting to realize, oh, these people already have a built-in audience and we want a piece of that pie. And lucky for me, because it had been Amazon top 5, it had already hit the New York Times, I knew what it was worth. And I'd talked to some other authors who were what we call hybrids. So they're traditionally published and they had self-published books out. So I talked to them, and an author by the name of Jessica Park was very blunt. And she said, you're essentially handing over your baby. And I just threw out a number I thought they would never say yes to. And they did.
They did or didn't?
Yeah, it was 7 figures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me about that moment. Where are you when you get that call? And who's the
I was very
person
pregnant
after you get that moment too?
That was in June or July, and I had my son in September.
Okay. So
I was very, very pregnant, and we were already starting to build a house because I was making $250,000 from Amazon alone a month just off of Beautiful Disaster. Now, you cannot make that kind of money now because there are millions of books out there. It's so saturated. But back then, at our price point, and if people are talking about it, because I remember when Atria approached me, they said, now, how much money have you spent on marketing? And I was like, what do you mean? I haven't spent any money on marketing. They're like, this is just word of mouth. And I'm like, yeah. And they were just blown away. They couldn't believe it. So yeah, it was just all word of mouth, Facebook groups, book groups. They were all talking about it. And Beautiful Disaster was very polarizing. So
in what way?
People either love it or they hate it. Okay. They think Travis is an abusive scrub or they think he's Romeo. So there is no in between. So people would go and say on the review, like, oh, Jamie's glorifying abuse. And other people would say, where's my Travis Maddox? So there was no really in between. People felt very strongly about it either way, but they were all talking about it.
Yeah, that's the good thing for you, right? Is, regardless if it's a post on Facebook or if it's an Amazon review, like, it's getting engagement, good and bad, and you're just sitting back like, please keep fighting for which side you think, because you're
Right.
doing me a solid here.
Yeah.
Was that intentional for you, though, to kind of create that character?
No,
like that?
not at all.
No, it just came out?
Well, I remember when I was first querying for agents, and I got declined across the board, but I did have one agent come back, and it was about Providence. And she gave me some pointers. But when it came time to publish Beautiful Disaster, I didn't want to query agents. I just wanted to publish it. But I did have a couple of them tell me about Providence, because it was set in college also, that publishers were not buying college age romances. I thought, well, that's dumb. You either want high school or you want adult.
Yeah.
College is more fun because you're young and your brain isn't fully developed, and you have the excuse of making mistakes, and you're learning all these new things. And so I just put out Beautiful Disaster, and the publishers were clearly wrong, because a lot of people wanted to read it. And that's when Beautiful Disaster started the new adult genre. Mm-hmm. There were some other self-published new adult books before that, but they'd not seen the success that Beautiful Disaster had.
Yeah.
Then suddenly everybody was either writing about underground fighters, or they were writing about college students, and new adult just blew up.
Yeah.
After Beautiful Disaster.
And you go back to that kind of, like dream as a young kid of like, I want to be famous, I want to Hollywood, and you're like, I did it, kind of. I mean, you're there, right? Not in the traditional like, hey, I'm a movie star, I'm on TV, but
right.
like you created a genre. Like
that's pretty cool.
Pretty impactful, right? When you look
Yeah.
back in however many years, and you're just like, oh yeah, I had a pretty epic statement and impact on the writing world. I created a genre.
Yeah.
Right?
It's pretty cool.
It is really cool. How soon does the sequel come up? The second book come after Beautiful Disaster?
So right when I signed with Atria, I was already almost finished with Walking Disaster.
Okay.
And I already finished the Providence trilogy by then.
Okay.
I later wrote 2 more novellas. I remember I'd already signed with Atria, did the book deal, and it was only a 2-book deal, and I was almost finished with that book. So it's just the timing was always really good. And I'd already sold to foreign publishers to translate my books into other languages. So I only sold them domestic rights, which most self-published authors don't have, or new authors in general, don't have that luxury. They usually want global rights. But because I started out that way, I've kept almost all of my foreign rights. And so not only do I get paid from my domestic, and I get paid from Amazon, and Audible, I'm also getting paid from foreign publishers. So that I really lucked out there. But what was the question again?
Like how soon after, I guess, does the second book come, and then how does things following on from that? How does everything change then? Since you're the person, right? You're in this genre, like you are the go-to, and people probably start copying you or creating books around that. How does that move into the future after that?
Well, I'd already signed Walking Disaster with them, and I was almost finished with it. I was very pregnant with my son, and I was determined to finish it before I had him, because I knew he was going to be my last baby. He was a surprise anyway. He was 13 years younger than my oldest daughter. So I wanted to finish it, so I wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote, and then I turned it in like 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, and I had him at 11 o'clock that night. And then Walking Disaster hit #1 on the New York Times, on the New York Times, USA Today, you name it. But it was #1 across the board in all 4 categories on the New York Times list, which was a first for Simon & Schuster. And they carry Stephen King, so I thought that was pretty cool.
Yes. Sorry, Stephen.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty epic to have that, to knock Stephen off that. Oh, I mean, just to have something he doesn't have.
And that really solidified my position.
Yeah.
I feel like in not just the romance world, but in new adult, and solidified the new adult genre.
Yeah.
So many books were coming out in that genre and hitting the New York Times, including self-published authors.
Yeah. I guess it wasn't very hard to not go back to school, right? And do the radiography side of things.
Well, I graduated.
You did finish it?
Yeah, I finished. I worked as an X-ray tech for almost 2 years. I'm trying to think. I might have the timeline wrong, but I worked for a while. I was pregnant with my son when I quit. And I remember walking into the ER, and the doctor started, and I already signed like a movie deal.
Yeah.
I already signed my book deal. And they're like, what are you doing here? You make more than we do. And I'm pregnant, so I'm like, I just want to make sure it sticks, I don't want to quit my job and then this not work out. It's just a flash in the pan.
Right.
Yeah. Now I wanted to make sure that I could pay the bills.
Yeah. There's that realistic part of your brain and the mum inside of you that's like, I need to make sure that like everything's taken care of, because, you know, fame can be very short, right? Book deals or movie deals or whatever it is, like it can be, you can spend it as fast as it shows up.
Oh, for sure.
You know?
Yeah. And I definitely got the lottery winner reality of just everyone coming out of the woodwork. And I did give away probably half of what I made for my first book deal. Wow. And I gave, you know, to my immediate family, my husband's immediate family, you know, we built a house, we bought 30 acres, we were toyed out. He stayed home with my son. So he had all the toys, but I gave half of it away, and then you'd have the classmate from high school you hadn't spoken to in 15, 20 years that I'm going through divorce and I'm getting ready to lose my kid, or I need to pay for this adoption, and then you also have the friends who you give them money. I paid off $25,000 of my best friend's bills, and she came back to me 3 months later and asked me for more. Yeah. So then you start learning, it's not really, money doesn't change people. They're always that way. It's just, you have to be able to set boundaries, and you have to learn how to say no. And then you're kind of paranoid of like, especially new people coming in. Are they just friends with me?
What do they want?
Mm-hmm. And then everyone thinks, and it ruins relationships. Yeah. Because they're your best friend until you say no. Mm-hmm. And then you're greedy and the devil. So I went through a lot of ups and downs as far as personal relationships and who was my friend and who wasn't. And then thankfully I got another book deal, so it wasn't like it was just gone. But yeah, a lot of people, you suddenly become very popular. Yeah. And they think, I've had family members say, just give me the money, you can afford it. Don't be greedy. I'm like, yeah, I worked for this money. So I want to spend it on what I want to spend it on, or save it, or invest it. Right. Or start a new company. It's just, it was very eye-opening.
It's also put you in an extremely difficult position, right? Like, not to mention that you're a mum as well at this time. You know, you're trying to raise a child, and then you got all these friends coming at you during this whole period of being a mother and writing books and, you know, hey, give me this, give me that. You're like, no. Like it took I too long. Yeah, it would have been, yes, I'm sure you have so many life lessons from it now, and that's never going to happen again. Yes. But at the same time, like, it's a real difficult position to be put in, right? Like, and the sad thing is they just think it's nothing to you. Well, like, and they also don't see the hours and you know, nights that you spend.
Or the taxes.
I paid
over $780,000 my first year in publishing in taxes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they don't take that into account, and it's not like I can write off that gift that I gave them. Right. You know, it's just gone. So.
Yeah. What was your biggest takeaway from that period?
Keep my circle small, and when you help people, they will usually come back and ask for more. And the people that don't, those are your people. That just because they're family doesn't mean they have your best interests at heart, and doesn't mean you have to keep them around. But I mostly learned how to say no. Yeah. And to be okay with being disliked because of it. Because as a, you know, Southern girl that was taught to be polite and not upset anybody, that was a really hard lesson for me to learn. But in order for me to protect myself, because if you're a giver, like most Southern girls are, if you're a giver, you know, takers will never stop taking. There's a quote that I really like that I use a lot, and I can't think of it right now, but I wish I could think of it. It's really good. But it essentially says you have to have firm boundaries if you're a giver, because takers will take as long as you'll let them to. That's such a clumsy way of saying it.
Yeah, but you're right though. Because like, not to say that they walked all over you, but like they've got that yes from you once. There's no saying they can't get that yes again, and they just keep like.
And then the guilt trips.
Yeah.
Or it always amazed me. I just became paranoid, because before I could have a conversation with a friend about money, but then all of a sudden when they would bring up money, I would feel like they were asking me for money. Yeah. So it was just a really weird dynamic for a long time of me figuring out myself and my nose and my friendships.
Yeah. To that point, I'm very selective with who I talk to about it, especially with because the difference of the average income here compared to back home as well. And the difference of lifestyle and the difference of the abundance of spending here is so different to the abundance of spending back home.
Right.
And I noticed it the first time I had that conversation with friends, and they were just like, they got uncomfortable. And it took me a while to realize that. And then I just don't talk about it. But there's friends out here who they know everything because I feel comfortable, and they're, and then also people who are at the next level that you want to get to, right? Like there's always someone else that's got more money than you, that's been more successful.
Right.
And if someone is like an entrepreneur, you want to learn more from them.
Right.
And figure out, okay, what have you done to basically set up the rest of, next 3 or 4 generations of your family.
Exactly.
Right. Like that's, even if you don't get that, you aspire to get that.
Right. Or then you get divorced and you have to start all over.
Yeah.
And you have nothing to show for the $15 million that you've made and have absolutely nothing. And you start over in a rental. Yeah. And that was tough too.
Let's talk about that, the life lessons of starting again, because that's something that I think can be super valuable and something that people can kind of transpire into whatever area of life that they're in. Starting again after having huge success, maybe it's from a divorce, maybe it's from a death, maybe whatever it is, getting fired, whatever. Tell me about that time. How do you pick yourself up and go through all that for people like listening that may be going through something like that?
Well, you're starting from the bottom, right? Mm-hmm. And while you're down there, you're also dealing with grief, whether you're grieving someone you've lost, a breakup, death, or you're grieving your former lifestyle. I went from not even checking price tags, and I'm not a designer. Like I have 2 designer things. I have one designer purse, and one designer pair of shoes that I've never worn. I mostly shop at, and my daughter says I pronounce it wrong, but Shein or Shine or Sheen or however you pronounce it. And Amazon. That's where I like to buy my clothes. But I've never spent an extravagant amount of money on designer stuff, but being able to go into a store, especially I spent a lot of money on my kids, and having to change and abruptly, and I didn't do it fast enough. It got me into a lot of trouble. That you grieve that lifestyle that you used to have. My daughter was being bullied at school and came home and said, I just want to get out of town. And I said, where do you want to go, baby? And she said, Paris. And we were on a flight that weekend, first class. So you go from that lifestyle to living in a rental and worrying about your bills. And, I started out, he got all the assets and I took on all the debt just to keep my books and not have to share them for eternity because, ebooks are forever. So it was a little different this time, the motivation. It wasn't, you can't. It was, I have to. And that was a lot harder. It's a lot harder to be motivated by desperation. But it's also a little bit of ego too. Because, people love to talk about me, especially online. And they were like, oh, did you see she's living in a smaller house now? And she's driving an older car now. And that was really hard for me. The shame, I guess it would be, to go from flying first class all over the world and having a plane, we owned a plane, and buying a new car every year and traveling all, everywhere we could possibly want, and staying at the Ritz-Carlton to, the Hampton was a luxury. Vacations in general were a luxury. Christmas became a luxury. So I struggled the last 5 years since my divorce. And as of March 3rd, I've paid every single bit of debt I have off. And it took me 5 years to do it. But also I've worried about money for so long that my brain hasn't caught up. I still lay awake at night, and because I'm so used to laying awake and thinking, okay, I've got this to pay, and I've got this much money coming in, because when you're an author, I guess an entrepreneur, self-employed in general, you don't get paid every other week or on the first of the month like everybody else. You have to budget. And so I had a tax bill come in the other day that was unexpected, and I had to scramble for a second, and I actually felt relieved because it felt like home. That's what I've been used to for 5 years. And I called my mom and I said, I have the most bizarre thing to tell you. You think that I would be so relaxed now that I've paid everything off, and I feel like it's caused me more anxiety because I don't have that to worry about, and I don't know what to do with myself. I'm just constantly on edge, and I'm like, oh, okay. So it's been really weird. I hope I get used to it very soon because it's been kind of unsettling. But anyway, I figured out the tax bill and it's fine.
Yeah. One thing I just thought about, you seen the movie 21?
I don't know.
The card movie. You seen that? It's a card game. Like the poker. Is it poker?
It's a long time. Is it a bunch of kids?
Yeah. From MIT, they go to Vegas with a professor or whatever, and he makes a ton of money and loses it all.
Yeah. They count cards.
Yeah. The episode, the scene, that story just made me think of the scene where he's like in an interview trying to get into wherever he's trying to get into. And the guy is like, tell me about your life experience, and then the movie starts, right? And then at the end it goes back and he's like, did that, did that wow you? Did that jump off the page? Like, because telling that story, what I wrote down was like, you've lived, right? You've seen that. You've lived that life experience that 99.9% of people that we know is never going to come close to that.
That's true.
I don't know many people that own a plane, right? Compared to all my friends.
To be fair.
That flew first class. And you know what I mean? Like, whatever it is. I know people that own planes, but you know what I mean? Like, it's...
Right. Well, to be fair, my ex-husband was a pilot and an aviation mechanic, so we could run it for way cheaper than most people.
Yeah, but still, like on a whim going first class to Paris, I don't know a lot of people can do that either.
Yeah, and my kids too. We books created memories for my children that we would have not otherwise had.
Yeah. And I assume this is that you wouldn't give up any of the last however many years for the experience that you've had with everyone to be where you're at now, to do a 9 to 5 and be in radiography or wherever it is, right?
Absolutely not.
Which is the risk that entrepreneurs take and the stories that we get from that. And you're still writing, you have all the rights to everything. Like I said, you took that risk too and all the debt on.
Right.
Because there's some part of you that's like, hold my beer, I'm gonna bet on myself. Right. And maybe that's because you come from a small town, or maybe that's whatever it is, right? Like, that's one of the main reasons I do this podcast, is to find out those little details, right? Because who knows all that stuff other than people who gossip about you online?
Yeah. Well, I grew up, and that's fine. I've been bullied my entire life. I'm a ginger, so I've been underestimated my entire life. Grew up very poor. Most of the other parents in town, it was no secret that they didn't think much of me or my family, or didn't really want their kids hanging out with me. And I was wild, so that didn't help. But, we kind of grew up on the wrong side of the tracks, and people have always just not really thought much of me. And people from my hometown and people that I used to know think it's a compliment to me when they say, wow, like, I'm so surprised at you. And I was like, no. You think it was a secret that you thought I was not going to go anywhere in life? I mean, when you're young and you have teachers treating you that way, it's very different from, okay, I got pregnant at 19, so the odds of me being successful in life were very slim.
Yeah.
But I got it from a very young age, even from my own family. So I don't know, it's not my first rodeo as far as people underestimating me or, I've been canceled twice. Like, I just keep going. I just keep talking and running my mouth. So,
well, it's authentic to who you are. And
I cannot do it. I'm physically incapable. And I know a lot of authors. One in particular that is extremely successful, particularly recently. And they are nothing like their online persona. They are very much into the charity vein, and everyone thinks that they're just this nice, funny person. And I've seen them in the green room of book signings talking to readers, and but they are the most popular. They are the most popular. And I heard a quote a few years ago, and it really got me through the first time I got canceled. And it said, I would rather be hated for who I am than loved for who I am not. And I just kind of let that carry me through.
What happened the first time you got canceled?
Oh, that was a bad day. That was a real bad day. So it's no secret that I'm a conservative.
Sure.
And I didn't vote for Trump the first time around, but I did the second time around. And I really appreciated the state of our country. Is he the most eloquent person in the world? Does he throw tantrums? Yes. Would I date him? No. Would I hang out with him? Probably not. I don't know. He seems kind of fun. But regardless, I mean, JFK was a notorious philanderer. Like, I don't care about his personal life. I wish he'd stay off Twitter. But our country was, especially compared to now, it was really good shape. I liked a lot of decisions he made, especially for a first-time politician. But, you know, I run my mouth. And when you do that, when you talk about politics, it alienates 50% of your audience. And I hadn't heard that quote from Dolly Parton yet that said, don't do that. So I made a lot of people angry. But at some point in time, some screenshots had come out of things that I had tweeted. And I had an account on Parler, too. It was like a conservative. And I really got kind of sloppy on there because I felt like there was a bunch of other conservatives there. And so I spoke in a way that I wouldn't speak, like on Twitter, for instance. Yeah. But still, I still don't think anything I said was that terrible.
Right.
And a few screenshots come out and people are, oh, she's a conservative. She voted for Trump. And I mean, I grew up in Oklahoma. It doesn't get any redder. Right. Of a state in this. Oklahoma. Right. So, and you know, I'm Baptist, Southern Baptist, Free Will Baptist. That's even worse. Like, you're only saved until everyone else in your church says you're saved. So it was weird to me that people were surprised about it. But once those screenshots came out and it got some attention, people started photoshopping screenshots to make it look like I said some really heinous racist. And I said, I did say this. I did not say this. But it didn't matter that I didn't say it because most of those people that were angry about it wanted to believe that I said it. So I just finally quit talking about it and I ignored it for a while. And then when the movie news came out, it all came up again. They signed a petition. There was a petition for, I think it was over a couple 100,000 signatures to stop the movie from being made. And this is a movie that's based on my books. Like, I get paid for the rights. Yeah. I get paid for the producing fee. There are hundreds of people that would have lost their jobs had that movie not been made. Well, people don't think about that.
Yeah. They think it's you directly, and that's all your money's coming out of this. If this movie comes out, it's coming straight in your pocket. That's what they think.
But so that day that those screenshots, the photoshopped ones came out, it was everywhere. And my agent even got on Twitter. They were tagging Amazon. They were tagging Simon & Schuster, Atria, everyone, and trying to get my books taken off the shelves. And they tagged my agent, and she fired me on Twitter in front of everyone before talking to me. So I had a really bad day. I mean, I was trending. It was bad. And I was dating a guy at the time, and this is a guy who came to my house every single day after he got off work, every single day. And that day, he really had to organize his daughter's closet. So I broke up with my boyfriend that day too. So it was a really bad day.
Going back as like days of Jamie, that's one of the worst days you've had.
It was top 5 for sure. It was a really bad day, but I took an internet break, and I remembered it's a vacuum. It's not real life. Yeah, it's not. I don't know any of these people, and they already disliked me, or they wouldn't believe it. Right. So
they're not outside your front door with pitchforks.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I already had a really thick skin from the way I grew up and from the beginning of my career, but that solidified it for me. And I remember back then, because Charlie Sheen was just everywhere back then. And I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to be the Charlie Sheen of publishing, I'm going to be the Charlie Sheen of publishing. But I'm not going to, I don't get to exercise my First Amendment right because I wrote some books.
Yeah.
That didn't sit well with me. Mm-hmm. And it's just not, I cannot not say what I want to say and talk about things that I'm passionate about. I mean, I'm a conspiracy theorist. I love all that.
I do too, actually.
I love, government conspiracies and rabbit holes and all that stuff. I love all that stuff. And I would be miserable if I couldn't talk about it. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to be miserable just because I wrote some books, and some people might not agree, because I've had a lot of people that came back after the pandemic and said, you're right. I should have listened to you. And I'm not trying to be right. I didn't want to be right. I was just like, there's alternative information out there. Maybe we should look at all of it. And I've had a lot of people come back and say, I'm sorry about the things I said to you. And about you. You were right.
Yeah. Let's transition into the movie. You mentioned the movie coming up. You mentioned signing a movie deal. Seems like very early on. How long, I guess, till you signed the movie deal till it came out? And then and then like, what's it like having, something that you've written being made into a movie? Like, that's, again, pretty epic.
Well, I signed right off the bat with Warner Brothers, and they purchased a couple different options for 18 months apiece. And then I signed 2 or 3 television show options with Warner Brothers. And it just never came to fruition. And then we tried again, and we pitched, and nothing ever came out of it. And then Roger Cumble approached my former producer, Donald DeLine, and thought that he was still my producing partner. And then Donald DeLine approached me, which I sent him to my current producing partner, Mark Clayman, who I've been working with for 8 years plus. And so they all talked, and Roger wanted to direct and co-write the script with me. He was very interested in being collaborative. He was very interested in honoring the original material and making a movie for the fans. And all that sounded really good to me. So we pitched it. We wrote the script first, and I spent the better part of a year writing the script with Roger. And then we pitched it, got a lot of no's. And then finally, at the tail end of that, Voltage said yes. And then production started, and it was nothing like I thought it was going to be. And, it's my first time, so obviously it was going to be different from what I expected. But it was different from what I expected and from the discussions that had happened prior to versus the reality of it. Mm-hmm. And then the movie came out, and my readers weren't super happy. And that was really tough because they hold me accountable. Right. And what a lot of people don't understand is once you sell the rights, it's a, what's the word? What's the phrase? It's a, I can't think of it. A professional courtesy. It's a professional courtesy for them to run anything by you. Any casting, there was only one person in casting that I was like, I will die on this hill. Yeah. It has to be Mike Cudlitz for Jim Maddox. And he's the one person that across the board all the fans love. Mm. So is it what I envisioned? No, not even close. It's I would consider that movie a parody of my books. Okay. And it's not the script that I collaborated on. So that was different.
Was that the first experience that you really had and felt like that you had sold out? Meaning that, like, not sold, and I don't take that the wrong way, I mean in a way that, like, you had sold and they can, now that they've purchased it, they can do whatever they want with it, sort of.
I feel like my readers felt like that I had sold out for sure. Mm-hmm. And I'd seen some comments about it. Yeah. Oh, Jamie just took her money and she didn't care, but I did care. I cared a lot. I shed a lot of tears during that process, and I advocated until I was blue in the face. But, they have a vision, and it's theirs. It belongs to them. And it really doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. What matters is, at the end of the day, I learned a lot of lessons, and now I know what to look for and what to ask for and how to, in that process, better advocate for my readers.
Yeah. And so now there's a TV series coming. And how does that differ then from the movie, and how are you looking at it different?
Well, they made a second movie.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which I wasn't involved with at all.
Okay.
I read the script, but it wasn't an adaptation of my book at all. It was basically just the book title and the characters' names, and it was a completely different story. And it didn't sit well with me to market this movie to my readers and have them buy tickets for something that was not even remotely like the book. So I didn't even know what was coming out. I still haven't seen it. But now we're starting on a different project, and it's from a totally different series of mine. Mm-hmm. And so we've been having a lot of pitching. We've been pitching, having a lot of pitch meetings, and I have a really, really good team. I still am, Mark Clayman is still my producing partner. And then I also have Dana Brunetti, who produced 50 Shades of Grey, which I met him on set of 50 Shades of Grey, because I visited Erica E.L. James on set, and that's where I met him. We've been friends ever since. And then his executive, Maria Pepin, they went out on their own, and they're awesome, and she is a ball of fire. You want to talk about a woman who gets shit done. Like, I've been in awe, because she just, this needs to be done, it's done. She just amazes me. So I have a really, really good team, and Maria had already read the books, and she was a fan of the books before. So, and they know the previous experience and what differences I'm looking for now. And so I have a really good feeling about this one.
Yeah. What's, other than the series coming out and working on that, you mentioned you're writing a book right now. What's that about?
It's a sequel to Beautiful Oblivion, which is the first book in the Maddox Brothers series, which is a spinoff of the Beautiful Disaster series. And it's Trent and Camille, and Camille is probably the most hated female lead that I have. She's the only female lead that has been has been loved by not one, but two Maddox brothers. So there was a little triangle there, and she probably didn't cut it off with one in time to satisfy the readers. But so it's my personal challenge this time to make them like Camille. So yeah. That's my job.
Tell me a little bit about your process, like creatively. Like when there's obviously spin-offs, and I'm interested to know, was it intentional from day one to be like, this is my giant spider web and here's the spin-offs, or was it just kind of happened over time? But also then that creative process of, do you just have a giant whiteboard with all these characters and figure out like how are you putting this all together? Like, open your head a little bit and tell me the secrets.
I wish I was that organized. I'm not. I rely a lot on, I have readers that have been with me since the beginning, and they are almost religious about these books. And I use them as my series Bibles. I'll call them and say, hey, what kind of car does Shepley drive? Or what color eyes does Camille have? Like, I ask them, and there's some readers I have that are really good about timeline. There's other readers that I have that are really good about details. So I rely a lot on my readers to do that. I've tried series Bibles. It just does not work for me. But my process has evolved over the years. I used to, back when I was married, I would stay up all night and write, and then sleep during the day when the girls were at school. I can't do that anymore, because if the school calls, I have to be not in a coma. So I have to find time, and I need to find somewhere else to write, because when I'm home, there's either people calling or knocking on the door, or the lawn guys mowing outside, or the dishes need to be done, and they're staring at me, and there's always something to be done at home. And so I need to find somewhere else to write, because I cannot concentrate at home, and it is really, really slow going. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Fun though.
Some books are fun. Some books are more fun to write than others.
Yeah. Where does that, because your readers are probably going to listen to this podcast as well. Obviously, as a listener, you want to find out what it's in their head, what makes them tick. What is something that they do that I don't know about? Is there anything that comes to mind? in that way? Like people might listen to and be like, they have no idea about this, but this is actually how it works.
The writing aspect?
Anything.
I honestly could not tell you something my readers do not know. My readers literally know about my dating life. Like, they know everything. I am an open book, and I'm a chronic oversharer. So as far as the writing process goes, it really makes me just irrationally angry to have to pee. It's probably something I don't talk about enough. I literally will go without consuming liquids. Yeah. Because if I have to stop to get up to pee, I go full ginger. Like, it makes me so mad, and I have to calm down to write again. It makes me mad. So I have my drinks, not a lot, all my snacks, and I'm just going to town and just, but if I have to stop to pee, it just ruins my whole day.
What's on the snack list?
Oh, hot fries for sure. Chester's hot fries. I really like the everything rice cakes. Those are really good. Anything like crunchy. I like the hot and spicy Cheez-Its. Just all the horrible things. You think that I have like grapes and dates and whatever. I eat the most horrendous crap and always have. Mm-hmm. And it's going to kill me. But I have the worst diet. I have a diet of a toddler. Like, if I could eat chicken nuggets and mac and cheese for the rest of my life, I'd be fine.
There's a lot of people listening that want to relate to that too, right? Because who doesn't want to eat chicken nuggets and mac and cheese for the rest of their lives?
Yeah, I don't eat really anything green as a rule. Okay. So no salads, no raw vegetables, really. I'll eat the odd fruit once in a while. But as a symptom of my ADD, if I put it in the refrigerator, especially like in a fruit drawer, you out of sight, out of mind, you forget about it. So usually my fruits and my vegetables just rot in the drawer.
Who has mac and cheese is kind of like,
shells and cheese.
Yeah, but it's also like, it can be ruined, right? Who has the best mac and cheese in your opinion?
Me.
Kraft microwave.
Yeah. So good. I do like...
You don't have a favorite restaurant that has mac and cheese that just knocks it out of the park?
I'm trying to think. They have a really good... I went to an airport one time, and I don't remember what the restaurant was, but they had a really good lobster mac. Okay. So good. And I've been other places, but nothing that stands out to me. No, but just if it's the creamier it is and has to have some spice, I don't do bland. My dad put... what's that red stuff? The Tabasco sauce on everything. And I was always, eating off his plate. So I just like really spicy foods.
Yeah, I can't do it.
And yeah, but I really like to make my shells and cheese and put some milk in it and butter and then put Rotel in it. Okay. Yeah. We could talk all day about some mac and cheese.
It's a process. Yeah, sorry. People listening it's lunchtime.
But you can't eat mac and cheese when you're writing.
No.
Because you're typing and then you got to spoon it in. And so whatever you eat when you're writing, it has to be like a finger food, So I eat salami. Yeah, a little sliced salami, like the peppered salami. The Columbia, I eat a lot of that. But it's horrible. I'm the grossest person. This is something my readers don't know. So a lot of times, I'll work in my robe. And if I don't work in my robe, I will have like a dish towel on my shoulder that's like almost like a burp rag on my shoulder. And when I'm eating, I don't want to touch my keyboard. So I will literally either with my robe. So I could literally answer my door in my robe at any minute and have like Chester's cheese fries orange on my shoulder. And people have made fun of me for it for years, but it's just what I do. Because when I'm writing, I don't want to touch my keyboard with greasy or orange powdery fingers. So I either have like a burp rag on my shoulder because that's hot, or my robe is, and I have 3 robes because I have to wash them all the time. So that is a first look. That's an exclusive
there we go.
For This Is Oklahoma. No one has ever heard me say that.
Yeah.
True story. Aren't you glad you asked?
Oh, thrilled. Yeah, that's why I do it. It's going to be a clip on Instagram.
Please do.
I will.
I'll share that one.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I'll share it.
Do you, back to the process too about writing, and mentioned you have ADHD and staying up all night, or in the past you've stayed up all night. Do you have like a minimum number that you want to write? Because a lot of people who go into writing, and they're like, hey, I have, like coaches might say, hey, just put a, 1,000 words down or whatever it is a day. Do you do that?
I try to get a chapter in every time I write. It doesn't always happen. If I write 1,500 words, I'm happy. My chapters are usually around 3,000 words. But the most I've written in a day is probably 27,000 words in one day. That was Red Hill. I went out. You know what Red Hill's about? Probably not. It's my zombie book.
Okay.
I love that book so much. I want to write more. But I went out to the Red Hill Ranch where it had inspired the whole book. And I asked the doctor that I was cleaning for that inspired the book, I asked him if I could go out there and finish it, because I just could not finish it. And so I went out there for like a week and I finished it, and there was no internet out there. It was creepy as hell. And I was up late at night writing a zombie novel. Good times.
It's not a position I ever want to put myself in. I'm scared of the dark. I'm like that person who like flicks the light off and runs and jumps in bed, because
that's your home.
I'm not good. I was never good at the dark as a kid. I'm still not now.
I'll tell you what I tell my son, like, eventually you're going to have to suck it up and like check doors and check the closets and under the beds. So I'm a single mom, and I've got my Ruger next to me. That's all I need.
All you need, yeah. I didn't grow up with that. They don't have that many things in the UK like that. I had a golf club in my bed, and that's about it. Always. With the process and going to that ranch specifically, did you feel like you had to do that just to finish it, or was that something you do a lot of, going to a place to draw inspiration from?
It's the only time I've done it, but I wish I could do it more. It's my goal one of these days to write on location, or at least have the aesthetic. Or the feel of it, or the vibe, or whatever. I would really like to do that, because it really did help me.
Yeah.
Especially with no internet, because I am addicted in a horrible way to social media. It's really bad.
Good and bad for your business, right?
Yeah, I mean,
good for the business, bad for you personally.
It really is, because my feed is very entertaining, and it's very active, and my readers interact with me a lot, and so it's good. But also, I have other things I should be doing.
Like being a mum. In the house, stuff that like you said, you need to move, you need to find a new space to write, because everything's looking at you and things to do in the house. My next goal is to be able to hire someone just to do my laundry, because that's the one thing that gets behind. Levels and ropes covered in cheese, powdery, orangey, fake cheese. I thought you were going to come up with saying some really gourmet place from Cherry Street in Tulsa, and you're like, no. Craft, whatever it is. Nope, someplace in the airport one time. It was real good. What was that quote? You can't take the girl out of the small town. You can take the person out of the small town. We can't take the small town out of the person. That's not the way I say it. No, what do you say? You can take the girl out of the trailer park, but you can't take the trailer park out of the girl. There we go. Much better than my version of it. Yeah. So my dad did have a trailer, by the way, a Silverstream. Yeah. Yeah, it was fancy. Like an Airstream one? Yeah. Isn't that what I said? Silverstream? Airstream. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, like the chrome looking. Silver, yeah. Yeah. Real deal. McConaughey had one too. You read his book? My dad was not McConaughey. It was not nearly as fancy as I'm sure his book, Green Lights, is so good. Talks about him driving around in an Airstream and his whole life. It's a fantastic book. Finishing up, because I feel like we could sit here and talk forever, but in the interest of time, finishing up, what's this year got in store for you? What are you excited about in the future? Any more exclusives for your listeners? What's coming? What's coming is I'm going to finish The Beautiful Oblivion. As yet, I still don't have a title for it yet, but I'm going to finish that book this year and publish it. And I'm hoping that we're going to have a streaming series for Providence announced very soon. So those are the two things. The showrunner, his name is Ed Decter, and he did Shadowhunters too. And he's just the most amazing human. And I very humbly asked him, and that's true, I'm not being facetious, I very humbly said, I really want to learn from you. He actually does teach
screenwriting. So I said, I really want to learn, because that's the ultimate goal for me, would be to just fully evolve into screenwriting. And I asked him, and I was like, if you don't want me to, it's okay. Like, I'm not trying to push my way around. I'm not making demands. Just, I really want to learn. He was like, abso-freaking-lutely. Like, yeah, I've like, one of these days we get you in shape and you can write an episode. And he's just so kind. He's so kind and collaborative in a way that when they say it, they actually mean it. And he really understands. He has a pulse on what the fans want and the marketing machine that are the fans. They, they'll do it for you for free if you give them what they want. Just honor the material that they love, and they, some of them grew up on. So they just, he really gets it. He's done the Comic-Con circuit, and he's seen up close and personal just how much it means to the fans when you get it right. So he's a rare human.
Do you ever consider being the other side, being on camera?
Everyone, and I'm really bad about this, I'm delusional enough to think that I could do anything, except for maybe sports. But I would like to think I could. But every single time I get in front of a camera, I freeze. Or my lips do this really weird little nervous, like Elvis thing when I get in front of a camera. And right up until that point, I'm super confident and I think I can do it. And then all of a sudden my body just freaks out. So these little things, the little cameras are okay.
Yeah. And
I do like live streams at home sometimes with my small reader group. But I don't know. I don't know. I'd have to see. I'd try anything once.
Yeah, it just made me think of who's the guy from Marvel that puts himself in every single movie.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Even if it's just...
I would love to do a cameo.
Yeah, even if just like, you're just there, right? Like,
for sure,
just
I would.
pop in, like...
I want my kids to be in there, too. Yeah. Just like, how can you get my 11-year-old son in there? Like, figure it out. Like, right. I just think it's really cool. I did kind of make a cameo in Beautiful Disaster. They put me and my son's picture up on the wall as like... Now that I think about it, maybe they were trying to tell me something, but it was the dead mother. The mother that had died when they were little. And so it was a picture of me and my son. So it was kind of a cameo, but they filmed it in Bulgaria, and I'm not vaccinated, so that was not going to happen.
Yeah, you're not going over there. Last question. When you look back on everything, 50, 60, however many years from now, what's one thing that you look back on and be like, I'm proud. I can take that to the grave.
Professionally or personally?
Both. One of each.
Professionally, I would say putting the new adult genre on the map and surviving serious pitfalls in my career and just persevering and continuing on. And personally, it would be providing for my children in a way that when I was a child myself, I would never have thought possible, not in my wildest dreams. I've been able to create memories for my children and do things for them that my own parents couldn't do for me. So those are the two things when I'm older that I feel like I can look back on and be really proud of and say, I got that right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. People listening, they can find you on Instagram, Jamie McGuire, and then your website too.
Instagram is the Jamie McGuire.
The Jamie McGuire, sorry.
And I'm on Facebook. I have an author page on Facebook. And then, yeah.
Cool. Well, appreciate your time. It's been awesome. Thank you so much. Get to know a little bit more about you. And for people listening that want to, I guess, make you happy, they just send you mac and cheese.
Yeah. If you want to contact me to do that, you can check me out on jamiemcguire.com.
And if there's anyone out there that wants to learn from you and maybe do your laundry too, since that's what you're looking for, to find someone to come do your laundry eventually.
I'm going to enjoy being debt-free for a while.
Yeah, it's a good feeling for sure. But yeah, thanks so much for coming down. Really appreciate it. And for people listening, we'll catch you next episode. Cheers. Hope you guys enjoyed that great episode. Thank you so much for listening. As always, huge shout out to our sponsors, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, sharing Oklahoma story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com and follow them on Instagram for daily updates at oklahomahof. Our other sponsor, the Chickasaw Nation, amazing sponsor. They do amazing things for the state, and they're always sponsoring something in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and without their support, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them, do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln. This episode is presented by Citizens Bank of Edmond. Citizens Bank of Edmond has been serving Edmond since 1901. They pride themselves on investing in the community and are here for all your personal and business banking needs. For more information, go to mycitizens.bank and follow them on Instagram at citizensedmond, as well as go bank there, because I bank there too. It's been a fantastic personal experience for me. I've had my podcast account there now, my podcast business account there now for 4 years now, I think, and it's been fantastic. So definitely worth your time. They're a great group of people, and they're always there to answer the phone when I forget my password, because I seem to forget it daily. So yeah, go to Citizens Edmond and check them out. It's been awesome. This episode is brought to you by the Dog House OKC. Recently, I have been in need of some doggy daycare for my 2 pups, and the Dog House have come in clutch. The team over there are incredible. They've taken care of my 2 golden doodles, and so it's been an honor to partner with them on the podcast and share the love. And the one thing that I do with the sponsors that I have is stuff that I use and recommend, like the Diffies with my car, Hall of Fame. They're awesome. Citizens Banks, where I bank. Chickasaw Nation, huge supporter of Oklahoma. And adding to that is the Dog House. And so if you're in need of doggy daycare in the day or boarding overnight, they do grooming and other cool things too. But I've had a fantastic experience, and it's an honor and a privilege to share this with you too. So go to thedogHouseOKC.com and follow them on Instagram at thedogHouseOKC. And hopefully our pups will run into each other.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.